We're going to look at who to vote for, Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, seen from the Christian perspective. In our previous video, we dealt with the practical reasons why people are to vote for Donald Trump and not Hillary Clinton. Many conservatives, however, indicated that they have conscientious objections voting for Donald Trump, even claiming that voting for Donald would be a vote for Satan, no less. A vote for Hillary would also be a vote for Satan, they claim. Now, these people truly have serious objections against showing any signs of approval or condoning the man, Donald Trump, because of his conduct and character. To prove their conviction, they cite the moral codes in the Bible that prohibit a Christian from associating with someone like Donald Trump. Now that is understandable, except they are totally misreading the array of events and characters before us. God placed Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton before us, the one representing totalitarianism, which is a godless and evil form of government, and the other with vulnerabilities and weaknesses that enable us to force his obedience to his oath of office. Hillary Clinton is unimpeachable, which will result in her implementing a totalitarian, godless government, and for our choice, we will suffer the consequences if we vote for her. Remember, she is unimpeachable because the Democrats built an impenetrable bubble around her, as they did around Barack Obama. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is vulnerable to impeachment because of all the enemies he made, and because his vanity will drive him never to suffer the shame of being branded as a loser on the world's biggest stage. I believe God has not placed Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump before us to make our choices based on moral and ethical grounds concerning the candidates, but on two futures that God wants us to consider for our nation. Either an evil government that will destroy God's principles in society, for which we will harvest bitter fruits in captivity, or the remanifestation of God's principles in our society, for which we will harvest the sweet fruits of liberty and justice. But, you may ask, will God work through a person like Donald Trump to turn this nation back to him? Well, let's look at what kind of people God used in the past to lead his people out of slavery and oppression. Moses was a murderer, Samson a womanizer, Rahab was a prostitute, Jacob was a scoundrel, and David the king and a man to the heart of God was an adulterer, murderer, and a liar. Does it sound familiar? We can talk about why God almost always chooses to use reprobates rather than nobility or the elite to do his work. But right now we ought to look at whether there is something much more profound locked up in Donald Trump's candidacy than what meets the eye. Donald Trump could be on a godly mission, and we should try to determine what that is at the hand of the circumstances and evidence before us today. I believe it is to return this nation to its founding principles, using Donald Trump's weaknesses and vulnerabilities. But Donald Trump is not the only one on a mission here. His strength and weaknesses and vulnerabilities are key attributes that have been placed into our hands to ensure that he remains loyal and on track. We are, after all, the Emperor of the United States, and we are about to pick a presiding emissary to go on this crucial and important mission on our behalf. And here is what I see from a Christian perspective. This nation was founded on Judeo-Christian principles, and those who deny that are either willfully blind or uninformed. Briefly, the principles of don't lie, don't steal, and don't kill are taught in the Bible, long before the social contract was established. I'll talk more about that in an upcoming video. The issue is that this nation has been the bastion of liberty in the world for more than 200 years, bringing religious freedom, prosperity, and peace, among other things, to all nations. Not only that, it is the only nation ever in the history of humanity that codified into its founding these liberties. where the people alone are the sovereign. It has never happened before. Nations flock in droves to drink in this nation's liberties, oftentimes suffering unbelievable hardships at enormous costs to do so. I know, I did it, and some of the damages are irreparable, but I'll do it again in a heartbeat because of the liberties that exist only with this nation. Liberty is the most precious thing that God laid out in the Bible, which the very feet that stepped on Plymouth Rock planted here. This nation has always worshipped God and boldly proclaimed that for everyone to hear and see. But we have lost our way and started denying God, prohibiting praying in schools, forbidding reference to God's law, worshipping idols, and introducing heathen practices such as the mass sacrifice of our children, allowing lawlessness and other deplorable acts and practices into our midst. We, the people, were tasked with the duty to preserve the God attribute of this nation by enforcing our emissaries' oath of office. But we failed in our duty, allowing God to be repeatedly denied and scoffed at. We cringed, but did nothing to recall those emissaries who were leading us astray. We protested, but did nothing to enforce the law, allowing lawlessness to overtake us. We are learning the hard way that lawlessness is tyranny, and it is caused not by those who break the law, but by those who do not enforce the law. And that is us, the people, who allowed our values to be trashed and dragged through the mud. We are indicted. It stands to reason that God would want us to choose life now, and the choice between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton cannot be clearer. We have already allowed Hillary to be set above the law, unimpeachable and free to continue to act lawlessly, abuse the power that the office of the president imputes on the president. Donald Trump is an instrument in the hands of God, just as we are. The mission is to prevent this nation from being delivered into the hands of totalitarians who will publicly shame and eventually dismantle this republic, allowing God's enemies to scoff at his name. We can choose, as we have done for almost past 100 years, to once again ignore God and not vote for Trump. That will place Hillary Clinton on the throne. And she will unleash the tyranny of totalitarianism on us and put us in shackles of oppression for not heeding the warning signs that God clearly laid out before us. That is why I will vote for Trump, regardless whether he may be a scoundrel, a womanizer, a liar, or a thief. Those are the attributes that will allow him to not recoil at performing the unsavory tasks needed for this exodus out of the house of slavery, upon whose steps to its chambers of torture we find ourselves today. It will also return to the people the ability and practice of recalling any emissary that violates their oath of office and their campaign promises. We should have zero tolerance for all emissaries who treat with contempt their contracts with this nation, which they swear to obey and uphold. This is a unique and very rare opportunity to vote life and not death. Vote and pray for Donald Trump for the mission upon which he is about to embark. And at the same time, you and I must pledge to hold all emissaries accountable for their oaths of office and their campaign promises. That will restore law and order and generate respect for the high esteem in which we hold our emissaries. Vote liberty. My family and I will.